Welcome to Strength Chat Podcast, presented by Kabuki Strength. Introducing your hosts, Chris Duffin, the mad scientist of strength, Rudy Cadlow, mature athlete and coach, and the wizard of training himself, Brandon Sen.
Welcome to Strength Chat with your host, the mad scientist of strength, Chris Duffin. To my right, Dr. Rudolph, our mature athlete and coach. And to my left, we've got Brandon, the wizard of training. So today, our special guest is Dr. Travis Jewett. Travis is the lone solo chiropractor on the MobilityWOD staff. He's the author of Dad Strong and a practicing, well, I guess I already said that, but practicing chiropractor. That's a lot. And he's a father.
Yes.
And family man. So like this is interesting to me because that's a whole lot going on. You're doing seminars, you're writing books, you're practicing at a high level. And, I constantly hear like lots of excuses from people about, actually you walk in any gym and like anyone in this, like, late 20s to 40-year range is not present because they've got a job or kids as their excuses. Tell us about this. How do you fit all this together, Travis?
Well, first, I want to say we have to get Rudy a better nickname than the mature athlete.
His formal title is
the mad scientist and the wizard, and he's the old guy. That's all he gets.
Oh, we don't use the O word. That's
sorry,
Doctor.
That's
mature athlete is it's a substitute for the O word.
Yeah, we won't name ages here, but he is much more mature than he looks. So
he's been getting after it a long time, and it's nice to have someone like that at your gym that can unload that kind of experience on everyone. But to your point, I wouldn't call my book that exciting. If you've read it,
you're not doing a very good job at selling it there.
I hope people are buying it. I kind of wrote it one day when I was a little bit bored, and I was, like you're saying, I was tired of people my age coming and talking to me and handing me all sorts of excuses about why they couldn't do this, why they couldn't go to the gym. And this morning I just PR'd my front squat at 35. So that's awesome. I think that you can always find time to fit all those things in if you just prioritize it. And that's kind of my discussion I have with patients when they give me a lot of that load of BS. One of the first things I say is replace the words "I don't have time" with "it's not a priority for me." And it sounds very different when you say it out loud that way. And it puts a whole different mindset on the idea that, yes, if I would make it a priority, I can still continue to train. You just have to put it in where you can. And yes, I do travel a lot. We've been off for a little while we've been working on new material, but I run a clinic. My wife's a dentist. She runs a clinic. We have 4 kids and all sorts of things. But I think if you keep your fitness close to you, if you've got some kettlebells and some weights and things in your garage or wherever you can knock out some sets, there's always time to put it in.
Yeah. That's just really powerful. Having someone state it's not a priority, because that is the truth. I mean, it's you are choosing to do other things over not do that, right? And maybe there's valid reasons, and maybe for you it isn't a priority, or you can't fit it in your life because not everybody can. And it's not going to be a priority for everyone. But, stating it in that manner is, I think, something that can help a lot of people because that's.
I don't know if it's so much that not everybody can. It's not everybody will or wants to. It's the excuse, I don't have enough time. Well, you know what? You have all the time there is. You can't make any more. You can't take any away. How does one person like Travis get so much done, whereas another person just doesn't? It's simply, I think, as you stated, it's not that they can't, that they just won't.
Yeah, and I don't think I do anything magical above anyone else. I think it's just a matter of waking up a little early every day and setting those priorities and looking at what my plan is, my schedule at work, and where can I fit these certain things in, and what do I need to do, and I've really kind of gotten to the
Wait. You mean you try to plan to make sure it fits into your life? You don't just like
wing it,
wait and hope that by the end of the day that there's time and it just happens?
Well,
Wait,
when you
wait,
have,
wait.
when
This is an interesting concept.
am I blowing some minds right now? I don't know. I think when you have four kids, there's a certain amount of chaos you have to be comfortable with, because not everything always is going to unfold every day like you want. But you have to set those things up before you start. Otherwise, what's the old saying? If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Is that
Mm-hmm.
is that a saying someone smart said?
Well, you just said it. You must be smart.
Can we put that up? We can put my name behind
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
And then just trying to execute it as best you can. And I've really worked hard over the last. This is 23 years of training for me. That's a long time, and not as long as some others. Like Rudy or Dan John's a big favorite of mine. He's got like 50 years of training in. That's a long time, but you start to accumulate a body of knowledge where you can understand what's relevant for my training to at least keep me making these small progressions as I go along, and what do I really need to do to not only maintain certain times during my life, but like if I want to push forward, what's the I don't want to say minimum effective dose, but you kind of have to look at it that way when you're planning. What do I need to get done to move the needle the way I want? And I think there's just an art to that when it comes to programming for yourself and others.
Absolutely. And yeah, actually, you just said programming for others, because you do some coaching as well. Is that not right, Travis?
Oh, I coach, yes. 3 nights a week, we try. It doesn't always work out, depending on some other things, but I try to meet with a group at my clinic 3 nights a week. It's basically free. People have donated equipment, but I wanted to be able to reach out to the people that trained on their own, but could use some coaching and some guidance here and there from someone who's got a lot of experience, has about taught a lot of classes and seen a lot of things, and it's really been nice. We've been doing it for about 2 years here, and I've coached in the past before this, but this is about 2 years of this at the clinic, and just the things people have been able to do that they couldn't when they started, and also taking the people that I had in the beginning, and they're almost becoming extra coaches. So when we do get new people in that fall into the group, even if they're a beginner, I can help them because I know the people that have been there a while can help everyone else.
Right, it's kind of a pay it forward kind of program, which is something we similarly do here. Is that we indoctrinate new people with our methods and methodology and training techniques, and eventually, they keep hearing those cues so often, they, wake up in the middle of the night repeating it, draw down, breathe, brace, root, all that stuff. And then pretty soon, whether it's 6 weeks, 6 months, or a year, they're coaching others with the same notion.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the times they don't even understand you're grooming them until they start sounding like you, and other people are like, is Chris talking to me right now? Is that Brandon? They hear those same things over and over, and they can become so helpful.
Yep.
And having them know what to look at, that's the biggest thing, and that's something that over the years I feel like I've really started to get good at through teaching for Kelly. And then I was just talking to Kelly this morning. The conversation you and I had at dinner back in June really kind of put me on this path of like, if I am dealing with people, it helped me really compartmentalize quicker what I need to look at and to make quick decisions about how to help an athlete. And that's something that I've been working on the people that have been with me a while, making them understand, where to look first, second, and prioritize that way.
Do you want to expand a little bit further on that?
I do. Sure. This is something I probably was doing for a long time, but it wasn't until I started to go out and teach and then talk to you where I really started to put it all together, that idea of taking a look at people at the trunk first and seeing what are they doing between their rib cage, their pelvis, and their breathing, and are they able to create that stiff canister that everything has to move off of? And if that's not right, then we got to fix that before anything else makes a difference. as far as I'm concerned, because
That's
changes in those positions can make other things look like they're not working, even though they're not set in a good position to do what they need to. And then I go to the feet, and that was the one that you really turned me on to, Chris, when we were talking at dinner. I was like, I kept thinking to myself, where do I go after I fix the trunk? And I was like looking at shoulders and hips, and we had discussed, the feet, and you were talking about my feet and looking at my deadlift, and I thought that does make a lot of sense, because if they can't create a rigid canister with their trunk, and they can't understand how to create tension and force into the ground, then a lot of the other stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah, it even affects the shoulders. So, because even when we do a lot of Brandon and I were doing client assessments yesterday, and we were looking at some differences between shoulder and hip mechanics and issues in both, and like integrating some of the things that we do to work on hips help with shoulders, and some of the stuff on shoulders help with hips, and that's why the feet can affect the whole chain as well. Actually, I see we've got some coaching cues that we use on the bench in regards to the feet that can actually help the winging that you see sometimes in the bench press. Everybody wants to go to that lat, and it's like, well, let's actually start with the trunk. Let's go to the feet, then we can go to the shoulders. But it's an interesting approach. Do you find you using that similar kind of thought process in the clinical practice as well?
Yeah, here at my office, that's one of the first things I look at is how is someone organizing themselves through the spine, their breathing. How is it? Do they understand how to create tension of any kind? Because when people have what I like to, my scientific term is floppy backs, they don't understand how to create.
Is that
another patented Travis Jewett term? All right, we've got it.
You're floppy. That's been my word to throw at people. Soft and floppy. Watch out.
That's
softest, floppiest.
That's for sure going to come up in our client assessments now. You have no idea what you just started.
But you have to give people an understanding that you have to create tension around the spine, even if you're not going to lift weights. And I think that's hard for a lot of people to wrap their head around. I live in a very rural place. I deal with most of my day is really with older individuals, farmers, some high school athletes here and there. And that's where I really like to dig in, because they're training, and I know the coaches here, and they're great guys, but there's a lot of those little details like that they're just glossed over that can really help these kids accelerate their learning. But it's just making sure that even just the regular people I work with understand those basics and how to apply them to their normal everyday life, even if they don't consider themselves an athlete or plan on ever lifting a weight. Even though I do make everyone pick up something around here, I've started making everyone farmer carry just for fun.
Farmer carry is an excellent one.
That's perfect for Iowa. That's perfect.
Well, I feel like it's an extremely beneficial low-level intervention for most people. It doesn't take a lot of coaching, and it gives them a lot of feedback and helps them to create a good posture and trunk, and just have a little bit of load on the system to help them manage any changes in posture, and say, okay, if I overextend, that doesn't feel right. If I'm flexing, that doesn't feel right. Just gives them a little bit of feedback and some load and a little bit of work.
Are you telling me load actually helps with the feedback mechanisms opposed to just doing posture unloaded?
Well, yeah. I'm not a fan of PVC work with new lifters. I don't know about yourselves. I have a training bar, at least, that has some weight to it, and I know people shouldn't be so stiff that they need weight to get into certain positions, but I feel like if they don't have some sort of external load, it can really be hard for them to learn.
Now, this is actually a point I've been pressuring some of my clinical friends or people that have a little bit of a bias against in that field against lifting weights and the need to, and going, we want good, clean movement. They'll do a lot of body weight stuff. And I'm like, no, it's actually load is an incredible teaching tool. It's useful as a coach, right? To actually apply load so that you can actually see more what's going on, because you can look great doing some very body weight stuff, but you don't know if they're actually doing all the stuff that they're supposed to be doing to maintain that. It's very easy to compensate.
Oh, who was talking? Sorry.
I was just saying it's very easy to compensate when you don't have load.
You can't lie under a load.
Exactly.
You really can't. And it doesn't even have to be that heavy, depending on what you're trying to look at. And Kelly has said we like to discuss load or cardiorespiratory demand, or both. Why not both? If it's an advanced enough person, you're trying to see some things that other people have missed. But if someone's breathing hard or something on their back is heavy, those to me are their lie detectors to see how well that they can organize themselves.
Yeah, right away you can see that. And a lot of times our lifters, even in the gym, talking about even warming up for training, will even start with a plate on a squat, instead of just using the bar for that very reason.
Yeah, I think there's a whole lot of things. And it also just brings back I'm gonna steal that term. You're on it with the one-liners today, but load doesn't lie.
That's a good one.
That is a good one. I'm stealing that. I'm going to use that in a presentation in a couple of weeks.
We're actually not even going to publish this podcast and just create a book of these one-liners.
That was ours.
All the stuff they stole from me. I do think a lot of people miss the boat in my profession, clinically, with avoiding doing some of that stuff. Chiropractic as a whole. It might be different with the guys you deal with, of course, because you deal with lifters and you like to send your people to people that understand that a little bit. But my profession as a whole, that's really just not a big part of the education at all. And
that's a consistent.
Exercise science was my original degree, and coaching and training was something I had a personal interest in before I even started going to chiropractic college. So I was always with friends that were on USAPL. One of them was a coach for the women's team, and a woman who had second in the worlds at 198. So we were always trying to apply what we learned into the weight room and vice versa, and how is the best way to help people help themselves. Because I don't want you to feel like you need to rely on me to get fixed every time. You should have some idea of what to do.
Absolutely. That's a huge thing, is that empowerment piece. But yeah, that's a message we consistently heard from our PTs and in chiros that we talked with. That is, there's just really not much placed on, movement with load or how this applies, and it's something that you've got to actually figure out how to put together yourself. Just like yourself, it's basically the guys or girls getting into the profession that have an experience with athletics, and then figuring out, okay, I'm learning all this stuff in school, but now I've got to actually put all this stuff together. And I think that's a big gap. I think it's a big gap.
It's a huge gap. I could tell you probably 5 ways to activate your transverse abdominis, right? But who cares if you still can't squat or deadlift, as far as I'm concerned. And I did a lunch and learn right out of school with a physical therapy clinic, and basically the talk was about how to apply using patterns to fix people instead of all these weird little correlate tests, and they thought I was out of my mind.
Well, aren't you glad to see some of it shifting a little bit now?
That was 10 years ago.
Yep.
So
but I'd still say
finally shifting, I guess.
Yeah, but it's the edges of the practice that are shifting, not it as its whole and base, unfortunately, just yet.
Yeah.
So.
And I'll have to tell Justin to keep holding in there, because I have the gray hairs now, so that people believe me when I talk. He mentioned that he's not old enough yet for anyone to take him seriously, which unfortunately there's a lot of truth to that. Even someone who's got a lot of good stuff to say, people see him as someone who doesn't have enough experience. And that sucks.
Yeah, Travis is referring to our last guest, Dr. Justin Dean, who's I think 28 years old in practice, and he's talks about not being taken seriously because he's young, even though he's has an incredible amount of knowledge and athletic background that he applies as well. So
I got to give it to him. I don't think I've ever done 1,000 hours of Con Ed, and he did that in school.
Yeah, yeah. And he's worked under he made some great choices and worked under some great people doing that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of school, then Travis, you said you you attended Iowa State as an undergrad?
Undergraduate degree in exercise science at Iowa State, and then I went to grad school for a year, thought I wanted to work in a lab, and I did not. After I cut a monkey brain into 2,000 pieces, I was like, this is really boring. And so I dropped out, and at the time it was between PT school and chiropractic college. I knew I wanted to be able to apply my training background and coaching background and also bridge that gap and be able to put my hands on people to help them on that end too. And at that time, it was take calculus and go to PT school or go to chiropractic college. And I wussed out on calculus, so here I am.
So would you say the change necessary in the profession has to take place at that level, at the chiropractic school level, that is understanding load assessment?
This is where it gets difficult because not everyone is going to want to work in this realm either. And that's where I feel like they should do more adding this kind of work into the curriculum, like as add-ons. If you're interested in powerlifting and working with CrossFit athletes or whatever, there should maybe be an extra course around the kind of stuff you guys teach, or the kind of stuff Stu McGill talks about, or Gray Cook or Kelly and us. Just those ideas of, if people are in the gym, this is what you need to be looking at when they come to your office when they have a problem. And not everyone wants to get involved in that. Because we live in that universe, we feel like everyone wants to be involved in that, but it's not totally the case. In my profession, there's plenty of people that still just want to go out there, see you 3 times a week, and whatever.
But other than people that come to you as a result of, say, accident, some traumatic experience, most of the athletes that come to you, but I would guess that a lot of the people that come to you are as a result of the mishandling of load, even if that load is because they're 50 pounds overweight.
Yeah. Okay, so I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I see the point you're making now. Okay.
Mhm.
So, yes, then to that degree, there probably should be some level of that kind of education on everyone, because it really isn't talked about unless you want to seek it out. And you're absolutely right. Most back injuries that aren't chronic that come to see me are related to some kind of mishandling of load and some sort of shear incident on the spine.
Right.
Doesn't that describe 100% of back injuries?
Pretty much, yeah.
So yes, to that, now I understand what you're asking, Rudy. To that point, there probably should be some level of this in every school without you having to seek it out after you leave. And maybe it was in there, but not to the degree that I figured it out after I left.
Maybe you thought it was calculus and you shied away from it.
No, because we've heard the exact same thing from our PTs that didn't shy away from the calculus. So
I was 23. Come on.
But I think that's interesting because it also ties to a discussion. I think when we first started talking, Travis, it was it might have been like a year ago.
Probably pretty close.
Yeah, you'd introduced yourself as being a member of the MWOD staff, and I said, "Oh yeah, we do something different. We do a lot of analyzing movement through load, and not really do a lot of the mobilizing stuff." And you're like, "Well, actually, like when I go into CrossFit gyms and stuff like that, usually I find I end up not even getting into that. I teach them how to squat and how to snatch and how to move properly, right?" And you're like, we rarely actually even get into, some of the mobilizing pieces because they're just not moving well, and they've got to be taught to move well first. So
it is, well, it's probably not shocking to you because you've been out there now, but when you first start going out and teaching, you see a lot of problems at once, and they're hitting you in the face so hard. You're like, gosh, we might not even get to all the stuff that I'm supposed to talk about because there's a lot of movement related errors that need to get cleaned up first. And and it did turn into that. And you have to try to stay on task, because when we were teaching the course through CrossFit, we're not anymore. You've talked to Kelly on the podcast, so you've heard some of that stuff. But yeah, there is a fair amount of mobilizing techniques at the end of the day, but for the most part, you end up just kind of going where people will take you and what you see them doing during the first part of the day and the questions that they ask around it. And so it did become kind of a lot of freestyling, and then all of a sudden you're squatting, you're deadlifting, you're pressing overhead, because you're seeing all these different errors and you got to fix that stuff first.
Yeah, otherwise they're just going to keep, pounding their head against the wall, because it's the same injury or other injuries are just going to keep reoccurring.
And there's always room for self-mobilization. It's going to be a part of everyone's day, whether they like it or not. There's going to be some joints that just need that kind of work. Tempering, boomsticking. That boomstick has gotten me out of so many jams since I bought it. But
I love your posts on it. I love seeing it used. We have so many people. They contact us. Is this legitimate? Is being used? I'm like, yeah, actually, like a third of our customers are chiros and PTs using it in practice. So it's always great when I see your stuff on Instagram and you're showing some pictures in the clinic using it and whatnot. So,
well, I want people to understand it's not just for athletes to have. As a clinician, it is so nice, because my thumbs. I've been doing this for 9
get worn
years
out
now, and I need these for like 30 more years. So I just had a colleague had to retire over hand injury, and that sucks. And what I like about the boomstick is I can apply the pressure that I needed to get with my thumbs, but couldn't for the longer duration of time, to get the nervous system to desensitize and relax. And you have to do some explaining. You got 70-year-old grandma on the table, and you're like, I got this metal rod, and I'm gonna stick it in your neck.
Just relax.
I try to be more delicate about it.
Just trust me.
But you got a few of those gray hairs now, so you got a little bit of trust in there. So
yeah, this is all it takes. You're trustworthy now. But it's such a powerful tool, because I can get the muscle release that I was kind of getting with my hands with that tool, and make things move a lot easier when I need to. And then I tell patients, if they need something like that at home, get out a rolling pin or something at least. But no one has a 22-pound rolling pin.
They don't? Oh, that's why we sell it. But actually, a good question while we're touching on some of the Kabuki Strength products. Because I know that you use the shoulder rock as well. Have you found any use for that, like in your practice as well, or is that just with your coaching and training?
So I use it personally quite a bit, and I probably every other day, and I try to put it into my warm up, because I like it. It gives me like a systems check of how I'm feeling. But I use it in my class. The guys that lift with me, I've taught them how to mess with it, because we call them dad shoulders. They all have they've all got old dad shoulders. One of the guys climbs windmills for a living. He was out just to see you, but I don't think it worked out.
Yeah, I missed him.
Yeah, well, we didn't realize you were actually going to pull 1,000 pounds that day when he was going to come in.
Yeah, he's messaging me. He's like, "You got time to spend?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love to, but I got something on my mind. I'm just going to focus on today. This is it."
Yeah, and that was it. That was incredible. But he climbs windmills, so he's always like way in here, and it really helps open him up. I've been messing with it with my staff member who's had the torn labrum that we've been working the boomstick on. We've started to introduce it a little bit. I've struggled to find let's put it this way. I've struggled to make it a priority to teach the normal person how to use it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because it does take a bit of time to teach it, right? So
I didn't want to say time.
Yeah,
right?
I don't have the time to teach it. No,
I don't have the time, but it's detailed, and a lot of folks that aren't athletic, I feel the lever arm would be pretty intense for them to figure out pretty quickly. So I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to introduce something like that. Even I remember when we were talking over dinner, even swinging it out front could have some good benefit. So I've toyed with putting some people in that situation. I'll let you know how it goes when I start doing
Yeah,
more.
give us some feedback. I'm interested because I like to share that with our other people that have it in their practice. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
we find when we first teach it, even to athletes or S&C coaches, that it's awkward in the first 5-10 minutes, but once we've kind of walked them through and talked them through the technique, then ask them to just set it down, do something else for 15 minutes, and come back to it. And it's amazing how
Mhm.
quickly they pick it up the second time.
Yeah, we'll let them play with it for a few minutes, walk away for 10 minutes, come back, and all of a sudden, if you'd had them work on it for 10 minutes straight, they wouldn't have made much progress. It's really strange. So anyway, just interesting food for thought.
I found
Play
that
around
the
with.
first time I picked it up. I was at Matt Vincent's garage, and I just kept messing with it, and I thought I was going to destroy his house. But it wasn't until I bought it myself and pulled out the box, and I was like, oh, that's what they were talking about. I don't know, it wasn't clicking there, but for some reason, like you said, I got away from it and then bought one myself and got home, and it made more sense.
Yeah, you just got to have a little bit of space in there, like 10, 15 minutes, and all of a sudden, like some of the clicks with the proprioception kick in. Why that is, don't know, but it works pretty effective that way.
Yeah. So, how do you feel after that 1,000-pound deadlift for 3? I just want to ask.
I felt this is a good question. I had this question come up a lot because I pulled that on Tuesday, and Wednesday I flew to Toronto to give a presentation over the weekend. So like there was like 700-800 people there, and I got asked that question, I swear, by like everybody. But I felt great. It was easy because that was, well, if you watch my training leading into it, that's the easiest workout I've done in like 3 months. Like it was, I did 3 repetitions, and I'm used to doing like 900 to 950 for like 12 to 16 repetitions in a workout. So that was like, I walked away from that going, hey, I feel fine. I feel good. Like I got on a plane for 6 hours.
What was so impressive to me was and I mentioned, and Kelly and I talked about this after we saw it, was just there was zero degradation in technique. It just doesn't stand up the third time. It's like, well, 2 was good, 2 3/4, but your body just wasn't going to allow you to finish the last rep. But you didn't like crumble every repetition and get in worse positions. It's just boom, boom, and done.
Yep, that's a way a lot of my big heavy lifts look these days. There's just no, like, I think a little over a year ago, I made an attempt at a 915 squat, went down in the hole, came up a few inches, and then went back down. And there was just nothing gave. I was just sitting there going, I can't squat, but I didn't bend over. I didn't lose any positioning. So yeah.
Let's get into this a little bit, because this is something I deal with on a very regular basis with the athletes that I see that do come contact me in Iowa to come see me, which is people aren't flocking to Northwest Iowa to see me yet, right? But
they
there's
will.
Nothing else to do. That's the problem. If I lived in a cool city, it'd work out better. But what
I think people just show up at our gym because they see my food post on Instagram, and they're like, I'm coming to go to Portland to train, and they're actually just coming to eat food.
Banana bread, French toast, yes. But what I find out is athletes are so willing to sacrifice their positions to keep going, and to me, that is one of the biggest errors you can make in your training, especially in the beginning. You need to become robotic. And I was reading through that article you guys had about autoregulation, and most of my training anymore is based off how I feel as I start lifting now. I used to be more regimented, younger, and I think there's some value to that. But just understanding what the work you can get in today without losing technique, and I think people they want those PRs so bad they're willing to take a dump on their back just to pull a deadlift. And I see that a lot on Instagram. I try not to watch them because the whole time I'm sitting there going, why didn't you set up for that deadlift? You can't just yank it off the ground forever. You have to actually put some thought into it. What do you, as coaches yourselves, Brandon, you do a lot of the programming for the online people, right?
Yep.
And he did
a lot of that.
Yeah, he did all my programming for this as well. So the last 6 months.
Yeah, from an auto regulation standpoint, it's you can kind of set your dial to whatever you want. There's defined scales of auto regulation. A lot of people within our realm are probably most familiar with the RPE popularized by Mike Teixeira.
Yeah.
But what they don't realize is you could create any autoregulation scale that you want as long as you define it. So, assuming movement quality is at your top, that would be your whatever ranking. Maybe it's a 1 through 5 scale. As long as you define that rating system yourself, I mean, you can control anything. Everybody auto-regulates training, and they've been doing it forever. They just, up until probably most recently, have people been actually defining the scale that they use to do so.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to play off that for just a second and your question, because we touched on it with both Kelly Starrett and Dr. Stuart McGill, that, anytime that we come into an injury standpoint from sports, it's two things. One, your loading program was too much. It pushed you past your limits, or your movement quality was lacking. So those two things are what lead to injuries. It's programming, or how hard you're pushing yourself, and and you're not recovering from that, and then that buildup puts you in a state of injury, or again, poor movement quality with load. So yeah.
And like this morning when I don't know if you had saw, I was sitting in the bottom of front squats for a minute for every day for 14 days, and it got terrible. Kelly challenged me to do 225 for sitting a minute in the bottom with 225 in front squat. And after like 45 seconds, I quit breathing and dropped the bar. And but what I learned from all that was I could handle way more load in a front squat than I used to think I could. And so this morning I just went for it and hit 355, which isn't a huge number, but that's 40 pounds more than I'd ever done in the front squat. And I think it's a lot of it is just that, understanding I can keep form under that kind of load if I trust myself. And that was something I was never doing at the front squat. And it goes into, I think, even like your deadlifting, you're doing with 1,000. There's a point where you can't breathe enough, and and I don't know how you when you let go of the straps. I always like watching you try to find the wall, because
you noticed that
wall? Why is it so far away? But
I'm sure we're going to end up with a hole in that wall.
But handling that kind of load, even eccentrically, I think that's what was probably the killer more than anything, is putting it down every rep.
Well, you've got to control it. Like, every ounce of it. There's no getting sloppy. And that's something actually, one of our coaches, Tony Montgomery, and I spoke to, basically touch and go deadlifts versus dead stops. And just talking about, like, you've always got to maintain load. So I see a lot of people doing dead stop deadlifts. They have a great setup on the first one, and then they get sloppy between all the other ones. And, to create tension and hold tension, you either have to never let go, which is a touch and go, or reset on every single one. Those are your two choices. Anything in between is a potential for injury, or you're practicing poor movement quality that doesn't translate over well to your deadlift because you're in a sloppy position with no tension with the bar on the floor.
Yeah,
you're yanking it off.
I've never done heavy touch and goes like that. I've always gone into resetting, but you might convince me to throw in some heavy touch and goes to test my.
It's just one of the, like I said, it depends on what what the needs of your program and your goals are. I'm not saying touch and goes are better by any means, but I'm saying those are your two choices, either reset or touch and go. So
no, it makes a lot of sense.
It's amazing how prevalent, though, poor movement patterns are, even within, say, the powerlifting sport, people that tend to know or supposed to know proper movement. We just hosted the APA, WPA World Championships here like 2 weekends ago. And to sit at the scorer's table and watch some of the form or lack of form in squatting or deadlifting. It's almost scary. I'm holding my breath waiting for something to pop or break. It's like, how did they get there? And these are supposedly some of the best men, women, and masters lifters, you know, in the world. It's frightening.
Yeah, everyone can tolerate certain things to a point. But Mark Bell has said, when people come to his gym, he's like, I have a crystal ball and you're getting injured if you don't listen to us and change your movement. You know, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but there's a point where what you're doing isn't going to work. And I had a kid in here yesterday. He's going to be lifting at a big powerlifting meet here in Iowa this weekend. And he can squat, 650 pounds, but he could do more if he takes care of a few little tweaks. And it's not that, and this goes back to, mobility and some of these other things. His range of motion is fine. It's the stiffness and the setup and where's his head and what's he doing with his trunk and those kinds of things. If I said, don't change any of this right now, like you're lifting Saturday, I don't want to get in your head, but when you're done with this meet, you and I should get together, because you're leaving a lot of performance on the table by these little mistakes that no one is seeing, because he just lifts with a bunch of lifters. There's no coaches in the group. And you can get really strong doing that, but eventually someone's gonna have a bad time.
Exactly. It's a matter of time.
Yeah. And he's a kid that I think he wants to total elite raw, and I think he could do it, but he's just got some little technical errors that he can clean up, and he'd put up some huge numbers, I think.
And reduce his risk of injury.
Yes, absolutely. And you can do it longer. And that was the conversation I had with him. You're 24 right now. How long do you want to power lift? Till you're 26? Till you're 40? How long do you want to do it? I've seen a guy 83 years old pull 390 pounds. I mean, it can happen. So
we had at USAPL Nationals just now. There was a 57-year-old that squatted 705, and actually was pushing Jesse Norris there for first place at the end.
That's pretty incredible. I didn't see that one.
David Riggs, 705 squat, 6 something deadlift. Had to have been a 4 bench. So just if you do things right long enough, I mean, you'll be able to stick around.
Yeah, you talk to that guy. He made some mistakes 30 years ago, guarantee
sure.
it. But look at what he's still able to do at 57. That's insane.
Yeah, that is insane.
Yeah, props to David Riggs.
Yep.
That's who it was?
Yep, David Riggs.
Cool.
So yeah, and that's something like I've in my career, I've got some pretty major trauma that I've had in my past, but I wouldn't, I've learned from that and learned a lot, and that's really what's been the impetus for putting together the systems that we have with Kabuki.ms. But there is no way, I'm more impressed with actually completing the training cycle leading to the 1,000-pound, pull for reps than actually the 1,000-pound pull for reps. Watch the video on that. The last 6 weeks of training is just absolutely. I was like watching it after Andre put it together, and I had to go in and put all the weights in there, and I'm just like, oh my God, I did this. That's just how did I do this? This is just insane. But that process of, like you said, with your shoulder rock, it's like you've got your assessment protocols beforehand. You've got some stuff that you've got to clean up. There's always making sure that you're recovered, that your training program is not pushing you too far, but in this instance, pushing us very far. Yeah. But without the methodology and approach to movement and making sure that I'm, clean as I can and moving freely and that I'm, don't have any issues going into every workout, that would just eat you up if you watched what I did. I mean, it's just.
The whole time I was thinking he's gonna die. This is gonna be the end of Chris.
I did feel like it. What
about you, Rudy? Were you thinking that?
Exactly. No, I have to live with him here in the office, and it's just he'd come out of some of those workouts and just plop down and think, oh my God, I have to scrape him up off the platform here.
People are like, hey, Chris, do you got time on your schedule today? What are you doing today? I'm like, I'm deadlifting today. This is one of my deadlift days. That's what I'm doing.
That's it.
That's what I'm doing today.
And then I'm napping.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
I wanna-
preparation.
can I say
Go
something
ahead.
about,
Yeah, absolutely.
what you said about warming up and systems checks, and this is something I think with the new course we're doing with Kelly that we're really going to get into people's heads is, the warm up it shouldn't be real long.
9 minutes, or 9 minutes or less.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of personally I do about 10 minutes of just systems checking. I call it. I take my body through all the ranges of motion that the shoulder should be in, that the hip should be in, and just see how everything's feeling. And am I engaging my trunk? My feet feel like they're grabbing the ground, and I'm sweating a little bit. But beyond that, and then the only time I do mobility work is on the side. If I feel like when I was training today, that wasn't quite hitting what I wanted to. So before I do that, before I hit that next time, I'm going to try to open up the shoulder like that. Or, my legs are feeling really stiff after that squat workout. So between patients today, I'm going to spend a few minutes, tempering my quads, and just fitting it in those other ways. The time for it isn't during warm up. That's like systems check, go.
Yeah, that's
red light, green light.
That's absolutely. This last weekend at Swiss, I had so many people walk up because we had the boomsticks and pain pills and shoulder rock on the bench. They're like, "Do you do this every day?" And I'm like, "Well, it depends, actually." They're like, "What do you mean?" Well, like some days I don't do it. Well, why wouldn't you? Well, if I can get the joints in all the positions that they need to be cleanly without restrictions, I'm good to go. So why would I wouldn't? You can't just always be additive. May not be the best sales pitch from me, but I'm just being honest. Like, it's a great tool. It's a very effective tool, and you're going to use it today for your training, right?
Yeah.
But
I did this morning, yeah.
That doesn't mean that here's a standard protocol and here's the Duffin warm-up routine. There is no such thing. I check the system and go, what do I need? I may need nothing. I may need to do some movement drills. I may need to do some boomstick work. It depends. And, we've got a very similar process to what you guys do. So.
Yeah. And, warming up, if you make it pretty similar, your body's kind of getting ready to train and saying, oh, okay, Chris is doing that stuff again, so he's going to be deadlifting soon. It kind of gets the nervous system firing and just gets you ready to go.
That's one reason I'm not a huge fan of rolling on the rollers on the floor, because like you said, when you're ready, you got a little bit of a sweat and you're ready to go, right? Laying down and pretending you're falling asleep doesn't really prep your body correctly, but your mind and your nervous system either. So I think these are really, really key points to drive home, because I see a lot of people warm up and they're just rolling around on the mat, and like that does not tell your body, get it like fired up, saying like swinging a shoulder rock, going, okay, it's training time. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that's what you have to get your brain saying it's time to train.
Yeah,
that's what it's about.
And all the top people say the same thing. So yeah.
So Travis,
Can
we're
I
running up.
mention something
Yeah,
about my book
absolutely.
real quick?
Absolutely. We're going to ask you that, because we're running up
I just
against some
wanna
time.
say,
So tell us about it.
I just updated it and added a section because I think it's the most important piece. And my stuff's pretty lighthearted if you've read it, but I think it's an important message, and it's about training with your own children, and kind of where to start and how to get them going. And I feel like, to me, if the book does anything, it helps get people understand not only where to start their own training, but when their kids start having questions, where to start them. Because the most important thing you do is pass along your knowledge of that fitness is important, and being kind of strong is good for your whole life. Being able to pass that along effectively to your kids is very important to me. And our garage is full of all sorts of stuff I've accumulated over the years, and the kids, and even if you've seen me on Instagram, my youngest, who's 16 months old, she's out there seeing me train. And I think it's important that they understand it's a priority in your life, and it becomes something that they become more interested in. And then how to start them out. What kinds of things should they be good at? How to fix a squat pattern, how to get them in a good top of a push-up position so their spine is stable. Just knowing what you're looking at, and so you can help your your kids progress safely. That's kind of the piece I added in. It wasn't there the first time I wrote the book, but I threw it in there now.
Good. I commend you for that, because that is huge. I mean, that's one of the big issues with society today is the lack of prioritization on physical culture.
Yeah.
And that, physical culture is a very important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're getting it plucked out of their school systems.
Yeah.
They're not
Right,
getting
there's no more physical
that
education
physical
in the
culture
schools.
education. They're getting game education.
Yep.
And giving them that opportunity to hang out with you and squat with a light kettlebell and do some farmers walks and do some things that look like push-ups and get them to the pull-up bar and show them how to start cranking out the pull-ups. My 5-year-old daughter can do more pull-ups than a lot of the people I run across.
That's pretty awesome.
That's great.
So where can people actually find your book?
It's on Amazon. It is. There's 2 ways. You can get the Kindle version. I think it's $4, and it's not real expensive because it's not very long. And then there is a actual print version available. I just submitted the updates for that, so that's not the newest version isn't for sale quite yet on the print version. But I don't know why anyone would want it in print unless they want me to sign it or something weird like that.
Would
Well,
you sign my Kindle?
What's that?
Would you sign my Kindle?
You mail it to me, Rudy, and I'll give you a signature. And then 10 years from now, you'll say, "Who the hell was that guy?"
Well, we're going to wrap up here. Is there a question that you wish we had asked you today that we didn't get to?
I just quick plug for the new MobilityWOD courses coming out. I think we'll be doing them possibly before the end of this year and January for sure. So people can find me in the Midwest. I'll be doing most of the teaching in the big metro areas around here. And then I do offer some training through Train Heroic, through kind of based off my book. That's Team Dad Strong. There's a bear and a guy arm wrestling, drinking scotch. So
Nice.
Great.
that's all you need to know. A little. I do like whiskey and deadlifts too. It's anabolic.
So scotch and arm wrestling. That's good.
Scotch and arm wrestling.
I like that.
So people can find me there. I have a blog I haven't written on in a while too. I don't remember what it's called. If you email me afterwards, I can send some of those links to Andre.
Okay, we will do that.
Yeah.
All right.
Other than that, no, I think that's good. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Travis. Some really good discussion. And again, love seeing that other people in the industry have some similar thoughts and approaches, and we learned a few things, and we got some good lines to steal from you. So we'll of course leave you off.
Away.
Like we didn't. Travis, who? What? No, that's Duffin line. What are you talking about?
Low don't lie. Low don't lie.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you,
All right.
Travis.
All right, thanks, Travis.
Thank you.